Hey there, I am Barb Higgins, and this is 1,000 Tiny Steps. In this podcast, I share my stories of love, loss, triumph, and tragedy as I continue to retrace my steps and ponder what led to the death of my daughter Molly. By doing so, I hope to not only help myself, but to bring purpose and possibility to those who listen. If you are ready to laugh, cry, shake your head in disbelief, then tie, buckle, face up, or slip on your shoes and join me as we begin our 1,000 Tiny Steps. Hey everybody, Barb Higgins here, welcoming you to episode 154 of 1,000 Tiny Steps. We have finished the first 6 steps in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm taking a little break. This week will be a sort of pause episode. I'm going to go over some things and give us a little bit of a reset to look back on what we've done, what we've all learned about ourselves, if anything. And if you've been reading the book and doing all of the breathing exercises and stuff, a chance to sort of look back and sort of contemplate what's come up for you, where you're better, where you're worse. If I had to say one lesson that I feel I have truly intuited from these 6 weeks, is that I can only control myself. And I am sometimes an impulsive, fly off the handle, respond emotionally person. And that can be daunting to people. I can say things I regret sometimes. And the number of times I've started a text and then erased it, answered an email and then not sent it, written a post and then deleted it, more in the last 6 weeks than I have, I think, in my entire life. I am just taking a breath, stepping out of myself, slowing down. So Breathing Underwater is the book that sort of made me decide to do this 13 episode season on the 12 steps of AA, right? I'm horribly claustrophobic and afraid of drowning. So the title of the book drew me right in, maybe from fear, maybe, I'm not sure. I'm going to start this episode by rereading the poem, Breathing Underwater, because the metaphors for me and the relationship to what's happening in my life are too profound not to share. So Breathing Underwater. I built my house by the sea, not on the sands, mind you, not on the shifting sand, and I built it of rock, a strong house by a strong sea. And we got well acquainted, the sea and I. Good neighbors? Not that we spoke much. We met in silences, respectful, keeping our distance, but looking our thoughts across the fence of sand. Always the fence of sand our barrier, always the sand between. And then one day, I still don't know how it happened, but the sea came without warning, without welcome even. Not sudden and swift, but shifting across the sand like wine, less like the flow of water than the flow of blood. Slow, but coming. Slow, but flowing like an open wound. And I thought of flight, and I thought of drowning, and I thought of death. And while I thought, the sea crept higher till it reached my door. I knew then there was neither flight nor death nor drowning. That when the sea comes calling, you stop being good neighbors, well acquainted, friendly from a distance neighbors. And you give your house for a coral castle, and you learn to breathe underwater. That's a pretty intense poem. So when I read it, several things come to mind for me. My thought process around trying to control every aspect of my life. A significant friendship that, as of this recording, is unresolved and I wouldn't say over, but certainly changed forever. A relationship with my circumstances that is less now about my desire to manage it and fit it in, and more about my willingness to give it over, to stop trying to control it or manage it at all, and just do what I can every day in a spirit of gratitude, which is not easy for me because I harbor anger. But you cannot be angry if you live with an attitude of gratitude, right? Such an AA saying. But it's meaningful. I don't do well when I'm lectured at that I should do these things. I don't like being reminded that I'm not doing what I should. It angers me. I get defensive. Analyzing that has been eye-opening. So I wrote a story all about steps 1 through 6. It includes the steps themselves. It includes the chapter names. And I'll insert little tidbits of experiences that happened to me at all of these different times. What I'm hoping from this episode are 2 things. 1, to continue the therapy I need to manage all of this. And two, to help you see that sometimes the value is the struggle, not the shiny thing you get at the end, but all the dirty work you had to do to get there. That's where the value is. The beauty in the broken, right? So here's my story. I wrote it on Jack's art paper. Once upon a time, I admitted I was powerless and that my life had become unmanageable. This was so profound an admission that I came to believe a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Isn't it cute right there that I think I was ever sane? This belief infiltrated my reality so much that I made the decision to turn my will and life over to God, whatever God might be at any given moment of my life. Not being a quick decision maker, this has been difficult. So I did what any truly mixed up person might do. I made a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. While this was more positive than I thought it might be, I got real and admitted to God, myself, and a good friend the exact nature of my wrongs. I chose a Baha'i as we share similar spiritual views on confession. What I found most in this journey, this part of the journey, is that a moral inventory isn't just the way that you are broken or wrong or the mistakes you've made, although we do get called out on those. It's all of it. It's everything, how you decide and what you decide and who you befriend and why, the choices you make and why you think you make them or why you feel they're necessary or good. This was a learning experience for me. Lots of therapy around this theme during these last 6 weeks. This too was actually positive and quite freeing, this unloading of my shortcomings. So freeing, in fact, that I became ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. I must say, I feel a bit wrung out. I also have no clue how to truly give these things over. What I've been practicing, and I'll get into today, August 1st, in a minute, I've just been practicing it is what it is, which is a theme that we're told to use on forgiveness, that we can't recreate a better past for ourselves, that our past is what it is. It cannot be changed. All we can do is change how it affects us, how we deal with it, how we think back on it. So my day today, and 5 days of Kenny in the hospital and 4 days prior to that of me sick, so many things are not done that I feel should be done. And I can be frustrated and angry about them as I try to get them done, or I can just give it over. All right, God, I give them to you. If I'm supposed to get these things done, help me get them done. Guide me in the right way. Give me what I need. They're yours. And try to stay open to what comes my way. I have said the serenity prayer a gazillion times because I want to make sure I know what I can change and what I can't. There are some specific things I have done. I've reflected on written words. These words: we suffer to get well. We surrender to win. We die to live. We give it away to keep it. The suffer to get well is the one that resonates with me the most because I feel like all I do is suffer. Right? Right now, as I record, Kenny, Jack, and Gracie are sitting by a lake. I'm in an unair-conditioned room, and my mom is downstairs. I'm recording a podcast, which is something I love, but there are so many ways I could be frustrated and resentful of this reality. And maybe inside little parts of me are. I wish I was sitting by a lake, but I'm not. And I'm doing something I love, which is talk to you all. So maybe I'll begin recording my podcasts at midnight so my days are free, right? I have used movement and music to connect my logical side to my spiritual side. I didn't listen to music for 2 years after Molly died, unless it was Taylor Swift that Gracie was listening to, and I made believe it was okay. It was horrifying. It hurt too much. So I've really been trying to reconnect with music and listen to different music. My mother and I listened to Mozart in the car today. I haven't listened to Mozart in a long time. I have avoided meditating on scripture. There are 2 places in the breathing lessons that I'm supposed to meditate on scripture. I'll read them to you. Gobbledygook to me. And rather than berate myself for not meditating on the scripture, I just acknowledge that some of the other activities in the breathing lessons have been more meaningful for me. So here's the first scripture I ignored. Feel free to reach out after this episode and let me know what you think, why I might have avoided it. May the God of peace make you whole and holy. May you be kept safe in body, heart, and mind, and thus ready for the presence God has called you and will not fail you. So I'm ready for the presence that God will call me and he will not fail me. And I'm supposed to meditate on all the parts of me that are ready for this. In reality, I live my life this way. I did a whole elementary health sabbatical on mind, body, spirit, and how to be totally healthy, in that you're only as healthy as your weakest link. So if you're a wonderful person and you're mentally well, but you eat junk food, you're not as healthy as you could be because your body isn't okay. And I've gone through this a lot. I have been fairly good to my body. I haven't completely given up alcohol, and I have eaten more junk food on and off the last few weeks than I have in a year. Not tons of it, just a bite or two. I'm pretty mindful when I do it. I don't feel like I'm slipping into bad habits. I just think I'm finishing the yogurt at the bottom of Jack's yogurt container. Radical acceptance has become an internal chant for me. And the whole radical acceptance, being radically willing to be radically accepted, it has such a nice connection to Eleanor and Jonathan in a whole conversation several weekends ago. Basically, that means that I'm worthy of love, even if I don't think I am. I have listened to Amazing Grace as I wrote that I was listening to it. We were told to listen to Amazing Grace 2 or 3 steps ago. I didn't do it. So as I was going through everything I did, I turned on a recording of Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace encapsulates it. Look at the lyrics to that song. It's pretty amazing. It's all about just accepting the grace of the universe and letting go of the things that you can't change. And when you finally acknowledge these things, you go from blind to being able to see, that sort of thing. I have spent the day looking at why I sacrifice the way I do for people, why I clean the whole house, even though I don't live here alone. And that could be time I could be spent doing something else. I battle resentment and poor me thoughts as I contemplate this. Today, August 1st, I contemplated this a lot while maintaining a positive attitude and mumbling things I'm grateful for several times throughout the day to keep me off of being upset that I don't get to be swimming in a lake right now. I have contemplated how blinding both bright light and pitch blackness are, and I have ignored more scripture. I was supposed to sit in darkness and contemplate scripture on God giving us, that the truth of the matter is in the gray. I'm not even going to read that scripture. I didn't sit in the dark room. I didn't light a candle. I didn't look around at the gray light. I shadow boxed my demons, that's for sure. And I did analyze when I tend to choose darkness or light to avoid looking at myself. In this process, I've utilized Carolina in a big way to process my addictions, which is my compulsion to befriend people that I feel need help, that need me and love me. I become fed off what I think is their love. And when they pull back or show their true colors, I panic and plead with them to accept my apologies, even when I haven't done anything that I need to apologize for. To be clear with me on what did I do wrong? Tell me what I did wrong. To be told that I should know what I did, that I've been told 100 times. To reread months of text messages to find what I missed and not see it. And to learn that this all stems from a 10-year-old child trying to control a horribly abusive household that was ultimately way out of her control and not her job to fix in the first place. And that while desperately wanting healthy, normal love from my parents, I was never going to get that by keeping my room clean and promising to do better. And I look at so many relationships in my life. Bruce, my biology teacher, Sev, my track coach, Eric, my first husband, Roy, Doug. And then I look at Steph and Robin and several others. And I realized that I was utterly desperate to have these people love me, including my current friend, desperate for her to be okay with me. And why does it matter? That's been a huge piece of this process for me. That's my alcohol. I have repeated one piece of scripture, something that Mary was alleged to have said. Let it be done unto me according to your word. So every Baha'i prayer has some aspect of this sentiment in it. All we are ever told to pray for is to understand God's will for us and to be able to carry it out. And then hope that the experiences of our days show us what we're supposed to do. I know it sounds like blind faith kind of, but it's a lot of detachment. So let it be done unto me according to your word. So a daily prayer that I do for my religion is Alawapa, which means the glory of God. And it's a one-word prayer. I talked about this before, and I say it 95 times a day. And so I've added, let it be done unto me according to your word into my Alawapas. So 3 days in a row now, I've said that 95 times. And each day, my planned day has disappeared. And a host of other things have come into play that I need to do. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a significant other. And today was no different. I finished and I got a phone call from my mother, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, here's my little ditty on the titles, the chapter titles. Powerlessness surrounds me as my desire for peace becomes desperate. I contemplate sweet surrender to all of it, but I hesitate. I find a good lamp to light the path and am shown that my accountability is what will sustain me on this journey. I begin to see that the constraints of time and measure can only hinder me, and I see that both the chicken and the egg have been here all along. Ta-da! That's my written summary of the first 6 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous for the month of July heading into August, right? It's been hellacious. So this morning, I received a call from my mom, and when I answered the phone, it was a paramedic at her apartment. She had called 911 in an utter panic because she was having such bad anxiety, she thought she needed to go to the hospital. That sweet paramedic understood that the ER in our town is the last place you want to go if you're in emotional distress, because it's not a comfortable place. He suggested that we call me, and so he did. He called. And I chatted with my mom on speakerphone with him and agreed to go get her. And she's been here all day, and it's been a wonderful day. Now, my initial plan was for the day had been to try to get a lot of things done, that Kenny would take Jack and go someplace so I could have a chunk of hours to get things done. My assumption was that these would be a chunk of early day hours, that I would be done with this episode at 10 or 11 in the morning, that I would have the rest of the day ahead of me to join them in their fun, wherever they might be. And I did not do that. I spent the entire morning with my mother. But you know what? I know enough people that don't have a mother that would give their right arm to give up a sunny day on a lake to do errands with their mom. And so I just needed to put myself into that place. I reminded myself that someday I'm going to be that paramedic-led phone call to Gracie or Jack, and I'm going to need help. And I'm going to ask them, and I'm going to feel terrible about it. And it's just the nature of life. We come into the world helpless, and sometimes we leave the world helpless. And so I spent my morning making 3 trips to the bank because she forgot her ID at first, and then she left her phone there, right? We did some errands on Main Street that didn't work out. We bought some shampoo. I colored my hair. I drove back to the bank with the hair color in my hair. We started the process of helping her get some financial assistance and long-term care assistance through Health and Human Services. It is now 3:00 in the afternoon, and I'm in my sweaty room recording this podcast. And you know what? It's okay. When I look at parents complaining about their belligerent teenagers or their troubling kids or whatever, I would give my right arm to have one day with Molly, even if she was a complete pain in the ass. I want her back. Even if she's a belligerent teenager, I want her back as much as I want anything. And so I spent the day with my mom, and it's been fine. It's been absolutely fine. By not worrying about the 9,000 things I'm not getting done, I'm not spending the day with my blood pressure through the roof or with anger in my heart. I'm anxious. I would certainly love a drink. Probably not going to do that. I feel better. I feel better. I feel like this has been a really good process for me in the guise of a podcast to help others, to help myself. Karen Kenny has always told me to slow down, and I get frustrated with that because it's not something I can consciously do. But to repeat over and over again, let it be done unto me according to your word, is no different than slow down. It makes me stop and think. And I've actually been able to say it over and over again. So I'm going to end here. I'm going to finish this podcast by letting all of you that don't have your moms anymore know that I'm lucky. I have my mom. And however we navigate this next phase of her life, I have to be open to it. and to let it flow and to serve my mom in a spirit of gratitude, not obligation. And maybe that's a good place to start. In the process of going through this day, I made tomorrow much better for me. I was supposed to get up at the ass crack of dawn and coach a 7:00 class. I called another coach who's coaching at night, and he was willing to switch with me. He lives right there. He can get his coaching out of the way. It was a good move. So the pressure is off, and that's pressure for me. Jack cries and cries when I'm not here in the morning. So, life is good. I feel better about it. Even though I owe a lot of people Molly B money that I haven't fundraised to earn, and there's 9,000 tasks I have yet to do. And so it is. I give it over. The tasks will get done as they can. Anyway, it's August, the Sunday of summer. I want to be enthusiastic about it. I want to enjoy every slow-moving day of it. I want to endeavor to make it feel as long as July, even though yesterday was track camp and that was June. I'm doing a couple of CrossFit competitions. I'm feeling good about working out. Physically, the estrogen helps me in ways I cannot even begin to describe. I have a lot of good and a lot to be grateful for. And so I just have to keep it that way. Send my mom strong vibes if you're a strong vibe sender. She's reluctantly entering probably the last 10 to 15 years of her life, and she knows that. It's not easy for her to contemplate or accept. I think we all get there sooner than we like. I can be here for her. I can enjoy it with her. Make it okay. And also a shout out to Kenny, because he does a lot of the carting her around. And in his words, I don't have a mother anymore. I like doing this for your mom. She's always been good to me. So there it is. Be good to your parents. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Be good to yourself. I'm going to be good to myself now by working out and spending some time in the pool and advocating for myself, letting go of this very unhealthy connection to this friendship of mine that baffles me still. Just pray for detachment and move along from it. By the time you hear it, I'll be 2 weeks into it. So hopefully it'll be better by then. Listen to a live and sign up for my newsletter. By this time, I probably already have posted some of my newsletters as blogs because they are like blogs, and I only send them to 80 people, and about 450 to 500 of you listen. So you're all missing lots and lots of real life connections to what I talk about in the podcast and what I read about in the blogs. And I will say again, like I've said at the end of every episode I've talked about it, I don't sell anything. I push my book sometimes, or the Molly B Foundation, but I'm not, going to make you pay me for the podcast or anything like that. I'll figure out ways to earn money that don't involve making you pay for my words. Anyway, be good to yourself. After that, be good to someone else. Call your mom or somebody. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at Barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.